So I'm going to get really personal and share a very deep story with you about how I had an infection in my arm that manifested from stored trauma that happened back in 2018. So I'm an intuitive health medium. That's what I do for a living. I can see where people have energetic stress and trauma that's trapped, and I can see on the physical body where it manifests into illness. And I got a tattoo on Wednesday that started out as a very mild, just allergic reaction. And by Friday, it was a full-fledged, complete raging infection, and I almost went septic. Now, before I get started, the artist is phenomenal. I use him all the time. It had nothing to do with him. It started out as an infection and it went from there, and it definitely manifested from trauma, which I'm going to share with you right now. So the trauma actually started back in 2018 when my 18-year-old son and I had a horrific falling out. And it was a lot of heated anger, a lot of built up tension, and it just turned into an explosion. And we went our separate ways. We barely spoke for 5 years. Now, for myself, it was extremely traumatic because my son and I were very close. Like we were just so close. I've been a single mom most of his life. And when we had our falling out, there was a lot of emotions, which decisions made from emotion, they never work out. And it wasn't about me waiting for him to apologize or him waiting for me to apologize. It was just time apart that was needed because we were seeing the same thing wrong and we just couldn't seem to agree on it. And it was divine timing in that he was removed because I was missing something that I was not allowing myself to see because I was putting all my attention on being a mom. Well, he was 18. It was time for him to go be a man, and I was hanging on to him to try to be a mom. And my guides, God, spirit, the universe, whatever you want to call it, were like, remove the kid. So they did. So real quick, I'm going to explain the arms and how illness can manifest in them, because the arms are like spiritually, like they give us access to things that we love. We hug people, people hug us back. We send and receive love that way. But also like if you lose a loved one or like a spouse, whether it's to death or they leave your space, it'll manifest into like skin irritations or psoriasis. Sometimes people even get carpal tunnel syndrome, or they'll have like stiff elbows. Their hands will get really cold and numb. There's a variety of different symptoms that can come from that sudden removal that like rips them out of our energy, and it's trauma to us because we no longer have access to them. And it causes that energy, or excuse me, that illness to fester in that energy, and then the physical body suffers. So back to my son and I, we got back into touch a couple years later. We started talking. But what I was doing on my end is when we would text, I would have anxiety every time. I'd be like, oh my God, please text me back. Please text me back. Or I would text him and then not hear from him and think, oh my God, he's gone again. Oh my God. So what was happening is I'm reprinting energy, that imprint, just hitting it over and over and over and reliving it and just re-imprinting it in my energy just repeatedly. And it's like punching a bruise, you know what I mean? And I'm just reliving it over and over in fear because I kept reliving the trauma of losing my son. So fast forward to Friday night, I'm laying on my floor going septic with 105 fever, and the pain in this arm that was so off the chain. I've never felt pain like it. Literally felt like a hot skillet just being pressed into my arm. My arm was atrophying. I was sick to my stomach. It was horrible. But I went into my medical, like intuitive health medium mind, and I was like, what in the hell did I experience to create an energetic frequency this high that would manifest into this kind of pain? Because the way it works is the trauma that we experience resonates with the energetic frequency that connects to the emotional reaction, right? So, and then that matches the severity of the illness we suffer. So I'm up here going, man, I must have been really traumatized by something, because this is about to kill me. So one of the things I teach my client when they're suffering from an illness or a symptom, even if it's a migraine, hello teacher, what are you trying to teach me? Because our illnesses, our symptoms, our physical like reactions to stuff is our body letting us know that we have trauma or stress trapped in our energy. So I dialed into it, and this is what came through. It was pretty intense. So for the last couple of years with my son and I being in touch, everything's been great. He's gotten married. He's had a son. I've been a part of it all. It's been amazing. But there's always been this like kind of distant when I hug him. It doesn't necessarily feel empty, but I can tell it's like not, you know what I mean? But the last few times we've hung out, I give him a hug and I say, I love you. And he'll hug me back and say, I love you too, Mom, which is music to my ears, right? My mom. It's like the best thing we can hear. Well, on Wednesday night, after I got my tattoo, I went by his house to visit him and his wife and my grandbaby, his son. And it was amazing, of course. He's such a cool dude. I love my kid. He's done so well for himself. So anyway, I go to leave and I give him a hug. And this is what started this illness. I gave him a hug and he pulls me in really tight. And he goes, I love you, Mom. And as I hug him back and say, I love you too, kiddo, in my head, I claimed it to the universe. I reached up, like I energetically reached up and grabbed it. And I said, we're good. This cycle is over. I will never have to worry about losing my son. And I released that trauma that I've been holding on to of feeling the anxiety and fearing that I would lose him. So just like I had mentioned earlier, within 24 hours, that illness came through in my arm, that all that emotion and trauma, the stress, the fear, the anxiety that had been sitting there just festering and rotting in my energy came out, and the infection in my tattoo. And the other thing that came through is they had to remove my son because I wouldn't have progressed with my business because I would have been using him as my excuse to not succeed. And they were absolutely right. My whole life, every decision I've ever made has been about my boys, even down to banks I chose to work at. Everything has always been about my boys. And my guides knew that as long as they were in my space, I would sit and work this business part-time and eventually run back to banking out of fear and make that fear-based decision that wouldn't serve me or my purpose. And they were like, girl, you got big things coming. You got to move your ass and get to work and work that business, and you're not doing it. So we're going to just remove everything. And it was crazy because it all went down in 2020. My son had been gone already, but my husband and I went through a divorce. My dad passed and my business closed. And so I had no choice other than to put my business online and run with it and hope for the best. And it worked because I put my business online. I'm now global and I'm full time, and I've been doing this now for almost 9 years. So they knew what they were doing, and they knew it would be painful. They knew I would suffer, but they knew it was necessary. And so when I started working my business and it went global, and my clients were over the world, I realized, wait a minute, I am safe. I'm going to be just fine. So that closed that door of fear of thinking I might have to return back to banking. So what was happening over this time of being away from my son, I was working through other traumas and closing doors. And once I got to a space where I was healed and healthy and in a good space, it vibrated my son back in because he was changing things in his life and doing what he needed to do to grow and change. And it eventually brought us back together, and it closed the door, which brought through the illness.